The second thing I want to look at, and this is where the power starts to come in from factoring, is that on day one, a lump sum of cash is released when the facility starts. And let's just look at this very, very simply. Just want to look at the idea. We've got a company, and the factoring company is involved. And let's, just to keep the numbers really simple, we'll say that the company's got $1 million in outstanding debtors, just to make the numbers really simple. And what happens is, on day one, that outstanding balance of $1 million is actually sent to the debtor financier. The debtor financier, in turn, actually releases up to $900,000 against that balance. I say 900,000, there are some players that will look at up to 90% funding against invoices. Most, I have to say, will look at 80%. There are some players that will look at 85%, but there are a couple looking at 90%. So the idea is on day one, up to $900,000 can be released back to the company. So clearly that can actually be a very powerful effect. What can you do if you imagine that your outstanding debtor book has actually got some capability to release cash? What can you do with that cash in the business? So the thing that is a very important and powerful factor is the ability to release that lump. So for example, we're seeing a lot of companies at the moment that are, for example, suffering from tax arrears. You know, they've used finance from the tax arrears and from creditors to actually fund their business rather than an overdraft or putting cash into the business. And so if you release a lump sum from your debtors, what it actually means is that you can pay off the ATO or the creditors that are shouting. And even if you're not under pressure, you can actually use that money to get supplier discounts. The one key thing I would say is if you do get involved, don't buy fixed assets outright. I've seen that happen too many times over the years, where a lump sum is injected into the business and it's all used for buying plant and equipment, fast cars, whatever it might be. That's a recipe for disaster. So as long as the funds are used wisely, it can really help. Okay, the third area I want to look at is that factoring finance grows directly in line with your sales expansion. What do I mean by this? Let's compare it to a bank overdraft. With a bank overdraft, what you have is your sales increase, and as a result, your debtor book increases. So the debtors grow as you expand. The problem is that the overdraft facility will be fixed. We can see that with the blue line there. And the problem is the more you expand, the more cash that you actually need. So often you'll find that companies are constantly hitting the overdraft limit in that particular idea at the 100,000 mark. So the overall idea is the more you expand, the more cash you require. And if you've only got a limited amount of overdraft, more often than not what happens is the trade creditors your suppliers get stretched and the ATO gets stretched. With factoring, however, what happens is the more you sell, the greater the debtor book, the more cash that's available. In other words, it actually grows with your success. And the other thing to notice is that with an overdraft, they will typically base the level that they will make available to you on the basis of your historic financial performance. The factoring companies will base their availability of funds against your current performance. Okay. Now this is actually going to be very, very important, because when the recovery comes, and hopefully it is going to come, although I believe it will be later on this year and the beginning of next, it's going to be very important in terms of expanding your sales. The banks, when we actually come to recovery, will not have the appetite in general to lend. And as a result, it's all about how do you actually fund that growth. So this is going to be particularly important.